guys, and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. Today is currently Sunday the 10th of May, and I have to say this is probably the most Sunday-y Sunday ever. It's super gloomy and very windy outside, so I've just been having a very chilled out day. I made pancakes, which is a Sunday ritual that I've been getting into since we've been on lockdown, and I'm literally loving it. I've been drinking lots of tea, and the only reason I've been out of the house today is just to go for my daily walk. So basically I've just been having a very relaxing day and obviously living my best Sunday life, but I am feeling a little bit flat and lacking in energy, which is why I'm super excited to be starting this reading vlog, because I feel like recently a lot of my reads have been very similar. I've been reading a lot of darker books, and actually a lot of just specifically dark academia books, because I read The Secret History, I read Ninth House, and I also read Truly Devious, which is technically a murder mystery, but it's set at a school, so I don't know if it kind of counts as dark academia-esque as well. And just in general, I feel like I've been reading a lot of very similar books. Now, I have been really enjoying them all, but I just feel like I need a bit of a change of pace to kind of like pep me up a little bit, and the book that I've chosen is one that I'm so excited to read, and one that I think will definitely sort of just like reinvigorate me, because it's a book that I've been excited to read for months and months now, and that book is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, like I said, I've been meaning to read this book for ages and ages. It's actually been on my TBR since I read Circe last summer, and I loved that book so much, and I just can't wait to get into this one because Madeline Miller's writing style was just so incredible. And I know this book is meant to be very emotional, so I feel like it does probably deal with some dark topics as well, but I feel like being a Greek myth retelling and just very different to the other dark books that I've been reading recently, it should just be enough to kind of like shake things up a little bit and just read something different, because I feel like although I have really loved those books, I feel like I've read too many very similar books in a row, and I just kind of fancy something a little bit different. So enter The Song of Achilles, and I'm sure that will do the trick. So that is what I'm going to be starting reading later on today, but for now I'm probably going to go and grab some dinner, and then I also need to get into character, because this evening I'm taking part in a live show, which I am very excited for, but probably significantly more terrified about than excited, because I'm going to be taking part in Jessica's booktube murder mystery. Jess's channel is read by Jess, and she hosted a Alice in Wonderland murder mystery a few weeks ago, which had like lots of booktubers playing different characters and solving a mystery around who stole the jam tarts. And this week, or today specifically, she's doing a Harry Potter themed one, which is centered around a murder that's taken place at Hogwarts, and I'm going to be taking part in it as Albus Dumbledore, which I'm really nervous about, because I feel like of all of the Harry Potter characters, he's probably the one that I could do the least good impression of, so we'll see how it goes. That video will definitely be up before this one, because the live show is this evening, so I will link that down below, as well as Jess's channel, so you can go and check out the whole show, as well as just me making a fool of myself trying to be Dumbledore, but that's something that I'm doing later on today as well. So this vlog is going to be off to a very interesting start. Anyone care for a sherbet lemon? Okay, so you know how yesterday I said I was very excited to get started on The Song of Achilles? Well, having slept on it, I've actually decided I'm not going to be picking up this book this week. Now, it's not because I don't want to read it, because I very much do. It's a book that I'm so excited to read, and that I'm almost certain will be a 5-star read for me. However, I kind of was just having a look through my TBR and also some reading plans I've got for this month and next month, and I realised that this book, and in particular its cover, will be perfect for matching a prompt for a readathon that I'm taking part in June. And then, having given it even more thought, I just think that this book is in many ways perfect for the theme of the readathon that I'm going to be taking part in. So I will be doing a separate TBR video for that readathon, and also for another readathon I'm taking part in June. So in that video you can see exactly why I'm going to be reading this video and why it is so perfect for that readathon. But essentially that just means I'm not going to be picking up The Song of Achilles this week, and of course I do need another book to read. So another thing that's kind of gone completely out of the window overnight is that I said I wanted to kind of have a bit of a change of pace with all of the dark academia books I've been reading, but I've totally changed my mind, because today is another very gloomy day. It's been raining, hailstorming, it's very grey and cloudy, and just very moody in terms of the weather, and I feel like the weather is sending me a sign that my time with dark academia is not up yet. So I've actually decided to pick up Bunny by Mona Awad. This is a book that I'm really looking forward to, because it's meant to be a very creepy and weird and kind of like cult-like dark academia about this group of girls who all call each other Bunny, and I think that's really just only the surface of all of the weird things that they're supposed to get up to in this book. So I'm really excited to read this one, especially because if you've seen my May TBR video, you'll know that I'm actually reading this book as part of a read-along which is called Bunny Read, and this is being hosted by Rain from the channel Brews and Binds, and she's co-hosting this along with me and loads of other booktubers, and she sort of came up with the idea to do this Bunny Read, and then we all got involved, and I'm so excited about it because this book sounds super interesting in general, but then to be reading it along with so many other people is going to be even more fun. And we also have a live show for this book scheduled at the end of May. I will put all of the information about this read along in the description down below, as well as a link to our Discord chat so you can join us and chat along about your thoughts on the book if you also happen to be reading this book in May. So essentially, I'm not reading the Song of Achilles, I am reading Bunny, and I'm very, very excited about it. So I finally made a start on reading Bunny, which I'm very, very glad about because I feel like I've been a terrible reader these past few days. I keep like really struggling to decide what I want to read, and so because of my own painful indecisiveness, I've had a few days where I've just not ended up reading anything at all. But as it started to get towards this evening, I was like, you just can't have another day where you don't read anything, especially because I do really want to read this book. So I finally made a start on it, and I am granted only about 30 pages in, so very, very close to the beginning still, but I'm very, very intrigued by this story. Like I said, this is a dark academia style book from what I can gather from the synopsis and also from other people's reviews of this book, and it's very interesting so far. We're basically following our main character Samantha, who is on a very selective creative writing master's program at a New England college, and from what I can gather from reading Ninth House and also The Secret History, all of the best dark academia books are set in New England colleges. It must just be like the perfect setting for a dark academia book, and this one is very interesting because our main character Samantha is a little bit of an outcast on her course. She's not from a very privileged background and she doesn't necessarily have many friends on the course, which is kind of exacerbated by the fact that the other 4 girls who are in her like cohort and in her like seminar group and everything are all part of a group called the Bunnies, and they're a very, very tight-knit group of girls who are all from very privileged backgrounds, and very strangely they all call each other Bunny, and Samantha absolutely despises all of these girls until at the very beginning of her second year on the course they invite her to a party, and that is literally what I've just gotten to. So I feel like she's going to be kind of sucked into this weird world of bunnies and all of the weird things that they're going to be getting up to, and I'm very, very excited to see where it goes, because what I've heard about this book is mostly that this book just keeps getting weirder and weirder, and it's already a little bit odd to begin with, so I'm very excited to see where it goes. I'm actually going to be going to bed shortly because I had a terrible night's sleep last night and I just want to get well rested, but I'll definitely be trying to read a lot of that book tomorrow because I'm super intrigued, especially now that I've started it, because my interest has definitely been piqued. Today is a very, very good day, aside from the fact that clearly I'm wearing a dressing gown, a jumper and a hat. So can you guess if it's warm here today? Correct, it's actually freezing cold. May, where have you gone? But aside from the weather, it's actually a really lovely day. I've been doing some filming this morning. I did also film a Harry Potter video, which is why I'm wearing the Slytherin hat specifically, but then I also filmed another video which I'm so excited about. I haven't been able to mention it until now, but because that video will be going up first, I can mention it here in this vlog. And that is that I'm starting a book club along with some other incredible booktubers called the Dark Academics Book Club. I'm running it with Emma, Carolyn, Lucy and Mary, who I've mentioned loads of times before, and we've been having Skype calls recently getting all of this sorted out, and we're launching that book club. The first live show that we're doing for the book club is on the 30th of May on my channel, and I'll put all of the information in the description down below, as well as the Dark Academics Twitter and Instagram pages, so you can go and check us out on there if you are interested in taking part in the book club. But essentially I'm just so excited about it because we've been wanting to do this for ages and we finally sort of pulled everything together and made it work. And also, can we all just take a moment to talk about the logo? Carolyn is doing an illustration degree and she is incredible. She's so talented and she has just made the most amazing artwork for this book club. So we are all so grateful to her. So thank you so much, Carolyn, if you are watching this. I just can't get over how beautiful it is. I'm just in love with it. So that has just made this experience even more exciting. But overall, I'm just so excited that I finally filmed the announcement video so that we can share it. They're going up on Friday, which is probably like 2 days before this vlog, so you should have seen that video already. If not, I'll link it down below so you can go and check it out and get all the information. But basically, I am so excited about it, so super happy that I can finally share it. And then the other reason why today is a great day is because Tuesday is when I go and do the weekly food shop. And in today's food shop at Tesco, I came across a new product which I am ecstatic about, and that is this lemon drizzle cake by Bosch. Look at that. Does that not just look incredible? Bosch started originally, if you're not aware of them, as like a Facebook page, I think, where they basically just shared videos of vegan food, and it was just like really easy, simple vegan food, hence the name Bosch, because it's just like, Bosch, you're done, you've made it. And they just share really, really incredible food. It's not all super healthy and like what you typically expect from vegan influencers. They do like hearty, tasty and just really delicious food. They then since brought out some recipe books, and then finally now they have products coming out in shops. So they brought out this lemon cake and also a chocolate cake. I'm actually not the biggest fan of chocolate cake. I prefer like fruitier sponge cakes, so that's why I've gone for this lemon one. But I'm so excited about it because lemon drizzle cake is so good and I just love cake. And it's so exciting because when I first went vegan like 4.5 years ago, one of the things that was like the hardest to get hold of was like cakes and pastries and all of those like fun treat things that you would have on a normal diet that's just like a little bit harder to find vegan, whereas now pretty much every cafe has vegan cakes and cookies and it's so easy to find them in supermarkets. So every time a new product is launched, I just get so happy about it because it just goes to show how much like more vegan stuff is available, and it's just really exciting because it just makes trying plant-based food so much easier for everyone. So I'm about to have a slice of this along with my lunch, and I will keep you updated on how delicious it is, but I can only assume it's going to be incredible. So let's make lunch. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I was led to believe, it is currently the middle of May. Today is the 13th, and I thought that was supposed to be spring, but you could have fooled me with how cold it is today because I am freezing. This is like my thickest winter jumper, and I did not expect to have to wear this in the middle of May because it's meant to be warm and it's meant to be spring, and I'm not deluded. I know we're in England, so I'm not expecting anything major, but just to like not be freezing cold. Jay went to work this morning and he had to scrape his car with ice, and that's just wrong. I'm just not okay with it. It's meant to be warm, and I'm just hoping that this is just like a couple of days blip with cold weather because it's my birthday next week, and I would really, really love for it to not be freezing cold because I feel like that's meant to be one of the perks of having like a spring or summer birthday, is that you actually have nice weather and don't have to deal with horrendous cold. So fingers crossed that changes before next week. But for now, I'm just having to wrap up in my jumpers and hope for the best because I'm so cold and I just can't cope with it. Now, I do actually have a reading update for Bunny, but I'm going to do that a little bit later on. I've read 100 pages now, and this book is just about 300 pages long, so I'm about a third in, and I'm definitely getting more into the story. It is super weird, and the way that some of the characters are referenced makes it a little bit more difficult for me to like figure out who they're talking about, but I'll get into that in a little bit because for now I'm actually going out for my daily walk. So I'm just going to do my reading update when I get back, and to be perfectly honest, I would rather stay inside with a cup of tea and read instead of going outside. However, starting tomorrow, so Thursday until Sunday, I've got my next block of yoga teacher training, and those days, as you'll probably have gathered from when I've talked about it in the last couple of blocks that I've done, are very full on. They last from 8:30 to 5:30, and then we have homework and prep to do in the evenings, and so I'm pretty sure that for the next 4 days after today I'm not going to leave the house at all, and I'll just be pretty much much focusing on teacher training all day long. So although it is a cold day and I would rather stay inside, I'm probably going to regret it if I don't go out today, because otherwise I'll just have 5 days solid in the house and I might get cabin fever and go a little bit stir crazy. So I'm just going to brave it, put a coat on and hope for the best and get some fresh air, and I'll catch up with you when I'm back. Okay, so I am back from my walk, back in my dressing gown and back with another hot drink, thank God, and I'm now feeling a whole lot warmer than I was on my walk. And then, yeah, the walk was actually really lovely. It was obviously a little bit chilly, but there was a cafe open again at the lake where I went for a walk, like a little kiosk where they were doing like socially distancing and taking away like serving drinks and stuff. So I got an almond milk latte, which was lovely. Firstly, just because it warmed me up, and then secondly because it's been so long since I've had like proper coffee and not just instant coffee at home, and I don't get proper coffee very often because when I drink it all the time it kind of makes me feel a little bit sick, but as a like one-off treat it was so nice to have like a super sugary creamy almond milk latte, and it definitely warmed me up. And I've now got a cup of Earl Grey tea now that I'm back at home, and I always forget about Earl Grey, but it is actually a really lovely drink. It's like a little bit more refreshing and fruity and just like lighter than an English breakfast cup of tea, but like I always forget about it and just forget that I have a box of it in the cupboard. But when I do remember to make it, it's always really nice. And yet again, I've managed to divulge into a conversation about hot drinks instead of talking about what I actually intended to talk about. So moving away from Earl Grey and all conversations to do with drinks, I have actually got a reading update to do with Bunny, and I have to say I'm really enjoying this book, about a third of the way in now. And for the most part, I'm very intrigued by this story, just because I feel like it's one that isn't really giving away too much about where the plot is going to go. So it's keeping me very intrigued, and just in general, it's a very bizarre situation. Like I mentioned, we have our main character Samantha, and then she is in a group of master's students with these 4 girls who are referred to by Samantha as bunnies, and they're like a very close group of girls. They're all very rich, and they kind of come across in a very childish way because they're so close and so like hands-on in their like style of friendship that they kind of come across like primary school girls, and they're just like very like over the top. And for the most part, Samantha really doesn't like them, but when they invite her out to a party with them, she basically starts to become a little bit enamoured by them and by this concept of being accepted by them. And even though like in one sense she hates everything they stand for, she also starts to like realise that maybe she's been a bit judgy and actually that they're having a lot of fun together, and she kind of wants in on it, but she's got this like mental battle going on in her mind where she can't decide whether she wants to like hold on to her like judgments and her like sense of superiority and dislike them and just be on her own in these classes, or whether she wants to like put that to one side and become friends with them. So that's kind of all we've explored so far, but it's really interesting just because, like I said, I've heard that it just gets weirder and weirder, and already it's a very bizarre style of writing in the way that people and things are described. And so I feel like I'm just really intrigued to see where it goes, because so far I don't really have any hints about in what direction the plot is going to go in. And I feel like Samantha describes these girls in a way that almost makes them seem animalistic and like they are kind of like bunnies in a very strange way. So there's like that element to the story which makes it even weirder, and it's just really interesting. The one thing that has been slightly confusing is the way that Samantha describes all of the other characters, because she often gives people nicknames, and in particular she gives all of the bunnies nicknames, and I feel like at times I've been like, wait, who is she actually talking about? But overall it's not that confusing. However, I think it does definitely add to the sense in this book that I've been getting, that essentially part of the time you kind of feel like you know what's going on, and then another part of the time you can't decide whether what you're being described and like what you're reading is actually as it is in reality, or whether it is just the way that Samantha is choosing to view the situation. And so you feel like she's kind of an unreliable narrator because she doesn't even trust herself and her own perception, and so that just adds another interesting element to the story and adds like an extra layer of confusion. overall I'm really loving it, and I'm excited to see where the plot goes, because honestly I could not make any predictions at this point. I really have no idea what's going to go on, but I am definitely enjoying it quite a bit, and I'm really looking forward to see where it goes, and I'm hoping to be able to read quite a bit more this afternoon. I do need to run through 2 yoga flows that I've been preparing for my next block of yoga teacher training, but aside from that I'm just planning to give myself quite a chilled out evening. I spent the morning doing some editing and getting some videos ready for later in the week, so that basically I have an evening just to relax, because although I love my yoga teacher training so much, the days are very full on, and so I know that for the next few days I'm not really going to have much spare time whatsoever, so I just kind of want to make the most of it this evening and just like have a very relaxing, reading filled like weekend evening, because when my actual weekend comes around I'm not going to have any time to relax, so I'm just going to kind of take my weekend now. So that is essentially what I've got on for the rest of this afternoon / this evening, and I'll of course keep you updated with any reading updates. Okay, so it's Thursday evening and I just finished up with the first day of this block of yoga teacher training, which is obviously why I haven't done really any updates today, because I've been busy all day. However, surprisingly, despite being so busy, I actually have quite a big reading update of things I was wanting to talk about. So I'll get started straight away with Bunny, which is of course what this vlog has mostly been about, and I actually did manage to finish up reading this book this morning before I got started with the first lesson for yoga teacher training. And this book was very weird, and it's one that I am really not sure how I feel about, and I've ended up giving it 3 stars for a few reasons. Now, there were certain elements of this book that I did really like, and I feel like this book, well, it was split into 3 parts, so you had like part 1, 2 and 3, and I feel like part 1 was very intriguing, part 2 kind of lost me completely and I was just like really not enjoying it, and then part 3 started to tie up some loose ends and kind of pulled me back a little bit. However, I also feel like this book was one that lacked a lot of clarity for me. I went into this book expecting it to be weird and quite excited about that, because I do really enjoy books about strange and weird and creepy things. However, I feel like the weirdness of this book was kind of at the detriment of me feeling like I could get invested in the book or any of the characters. Like I've mentioned a couple of times, the main character Samantha is one who has been set up to be a little bit of an unreliable narrator, because she doesn't even really know what she thinks, and therefore you as a reader can't really believe in what she's saying. So I feel like because of her own sort of lack of clarity about her situation, you don't really get to know her very well as a character, but then the other characters that she's describing are also described in such confusing ways that I feel like you don't really know them at all either. And I do know that that was an intentional choice on the part of the author, because she's setting up this very confusing situation and it really does map the eventual kind of delusion of the main character, and I think that in and of itself is interesting, but I feel like it kind of went a little bit too far at times, to the point where I wasn't invested in this story because I didn't feel like I knew any of the characters and I didn't really know what was going on. And I feel like there's a fine line when you're dealing with something like delusion, like this book does, where you do want to set up that confusing situation to really convey what's going on in the protagonist's mind. However, I also feel like if you don't really give the readers the chance to get to know them, then, at least for me anyway, that sort of impedes my ability to really get invested in the story. So I feel like that's kind of where my issue with this book lay, was that, yeah, it was split into 3 parts. The first part was very intriguing and I kind of could believe in our protagonist at that time and I was interested in what was going to happen. The second part lost me entirely and was just so confusing and I didn't know what was going on. And then the third part kind of pulled me back in and started to tie things up a little bit. However, I still think it left a lot of things very open-ended. And whilst it was intriguing and interesting, I just didn't feel like it quite did it for me. And being that this is like a bit of a dark academia style book, I did find myself comparing it to the other dark academias that I've been reading recently, particularly like The Secret History, which I just thought was really good and did tie things up very nicely. And so I just feel like, having compared this book to that one, this one just didn't seem quite as good in my opinion. It's really weird and definitely interesting. I just couldn't fully find myself getting invested in the characters, and so it was 3 stars just because it wasn't like quite what I'd hoped and I just didn't get quite the resolution I wanted. But it is definitely interesting, and I wouldn't say don't read it because it's certainly an interesting concept, and maybe other people wouldn't be as confused as I was, like, but I can't even get my words out. Maybe other people wouldn't be as confused by this book as I was, but I just found parts of it to be very like odd and very like a little bit too far in terms of being like bizarre and delving into delusion. But overall it was interesting, so it wasn't a terrible read. I did enjoy it to an extent, but there were parts of it where it kind of lost me, and then other parts were so good that they pulled me back in, but I just feel like overall it balanced out at about 3 stars. So moving on, I've been doing yoga teacher training today, as I've already mentioned, and one of the books that we read as part of yoga teacher training in terms of philosophy is the Bhagavad Gita. I actually read this book for the first time last October in preparation for yoga teacher training, so that will be on my October reading wrap up, so I'll link that down below if you want to hear my thoughts on this book as a whole. But in particular today we were reading one chapter together as a class. We were talking about lots of the different meanings, and all I could think about throughout this class was basically how much it was reminding me of certain elements of Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. In particular, this book and the chapter we were looking at was delving into the theme of reincarnation, of not being attached to the present moment, of knowing that, you know, it's not really worthwhile becoming really sad about the concept of death and about the concept of other people dying, because you can't change it and it's inevitable, and so therefore worrying about it kind of just takes away from your current present moment, which is the only thing you can control. And when we were talking about that, it really brought up a quote for me from War and Peace, which is essentially, let the dead bury the dead, but whilst I'm alive I must live and be happy, which essentially delves into that concept as well, which is like there's no point worrying about other people and worrying about death all of the time, because you can't control it, and if you sort of worry about that all the time, you just take away from your own actual life and your own ability to have a present moment and to enjoy it and all of that kind of stuff. And although this book doesn't really delve into it in an Eastern philosophy kind of way, I was really surprised by how similar the concept seemed. And then when I started thinking about War and Peace even more and actually started discussing it with the rest of the people on my course, I realised that there was actually a lot of similarities, particularly in the sense that we see one of the main characters from War and Peace, Pierre, going on quite a spiritual journey as he tries to figure out basically like what the meaning of his life is and how he wants to go about using his wealth and all of the sort of like things that have been gifted to him throughout his life, and how he kind of wants to go about putting that into use for other people. And I just feel like Pierre goes on a very spiritual journey, and it seemed very similar to some of the things that the main character in this book, Arujna, starts to learn as he's being guided by Krishna, the god. So I was surprised to see these two things coming together, because it wasn't like two texts that I'd ever really considered matching up before, but they were really like similar, and it's now made me really want to reread A War and Peace, and I think I might be doing a buddy read of this with some people soon, so that's very exciting, just because I feel like now having this like extra knowledge of Eastern philosophy, I could maybe like get even more from this book. And also I just feel like this book is so big in general that reading it the second time might be like easier to get more from it, and I might start to be able to dissect more from the text as well. So I was very surprised to match up these two books, but it was definitely an interesting one, and I certainly enjoyed sort of discussing how like learnings from the Bhagavad Gita and other similar yogic texts could be applied to things like Tolstoy. And very much finally, because I feel like I've been talking forever, I've decided that this evening I'm going to be picking up The Power of Now. I actually mentioned this in my last reading vlog because it was delivered during that vlog, and I'm really excited to read this one. It's a very short spiritual enlightenment guide by Eckhart Tolle, and it's one that has been brought up quite a lot of times by my fellow like trainees on my yoga teacher training, and also by some of the trainers, and it's a book that I'm very interested in reading. And seeing as I'm currently doing my yoga teacher training and don't have a huge amount of time for reading over the next few days, I thought this one would be a good one to pick up because it's quite short but also relevant, so I feel like I can read it alongside my teacher training and feel like it's actually helping me to process the information. So, gigantic reading update done. I am about to make some dinner, relax for the evening, and I'll probably get started on The Power of Now, and I'll of course keep you updated as I go. the past few days have absolutely flown by, and as predicted, I've been so busy just trying to take in all of the information and let that all soak in that after finishing Bunny and speaking to you about that the other day, I haven't done any more reading, and I haven't really picked up the camera either because all I've really been doing is reading and trying to process the Bhagavad Gita, which I did speak to you about the other day, and also doing a lot of reading about anatomy, which is a lot less interesting to talk about on here, but it is actually something that I'm loving, and it's actually surprisingly my favourite bit of yoga teacher training, which I didn't expect when I went into it, but it is honestly my absolute favourite. So I've been doing a lot of anatomy reading and having a great time, but just not really picking up the camera because I've just been so busy. But essentially it's Saturday afternoon, the teacher training course, or this block of the teacher training course, finishes tomorrow, and we always have a test on the last day of each block, so I'm pretty sure that this evening is going to be another one that's absolutely packed full of studying, and I don't imagine I'm going to be doing any more reading. So I thought I would finish up this vlog here, and I thought it might be fun to finish up with a little bit of a yoga talk, because whilst I compared the Bhagavad Gita to War and Peace the other day and spoke to you about that, my lead trainer Angela just spoke about how the Bhagavad Gita can be very much compared to Star Wars, and in particular that Yoda, who obviously his name sounds just like yoga, basically makes a lot of references to things that are talked about in the Bhagavad Gita. And he is of course a Jedi, or like a spiritual leader in a way, so it's kind of not surprising that he makes a lot of these same points. But one of the things that we talk about the most in our yoga philosophy lessons is the theme of attachment, and how being attached to things and having expectations about experiences and about what we want to achieve, and just being attached to the past and the future and all of those things can only lead to suffering, because you set up expectations, and when those expectations are not met, you obviously are going to be disappointed. Or when things go really well, but then things change, you can become disappointed as well. And she basically quoted Yoda basically saying how essentially that fear, attachment, anger, all of these things basically are the path to the dark side. And of course there is no dark side in real life yoga. However, it is obviously a definite reference to the fact that being angry, holding on to things, becoming attached to ideas is obviously a path to suffering. So it's really funny how I feel like I said, when I went into this yoga teacher training, I didn't expect to see the teachings in so many things. I wouldn't have expected to find it in War and Peace, but also in Star Wars, and I'm sure plenty of other like pop culture things. And it's just really fun how like it just pops up everywhere, and how I feel like that's what makes yoga so exciting and so accessible, and something that I enjoy about it so much is that we see it in so many places, and when you start to look you can see the teachings in so many ways, and you can start to see how yoga can kind of work for everyone in their individual way, because you maybe can see it in Star Wars, see it in Harry Potter, see it in any other thing that you really like, and when you sort of start to dig deep into texts, books, films, whatever it is that you may enjoy, you can start to see those teachings and start to find value in what it is that you enjoy. So essentially there is value to be found in everything, and I'm just having a great time doing this teacher training. I'm learning so much and it's just so much fun. So with that being said, I'm just about to go back into the afternoon session of teacher training. This evening I've got pizza, which I'm so excited about, and aside from that I'm just going to be doing a lot of studying and hopefully making sure that I know what I'm talking about for my test tomorrow. So I hope you enjoyed hearing all of my thoughts on Bunny, which is a book that I'm still processing my thoughts on because it was so very weird, and it's probably one that I will reread and maybe find a little bit easier to process, just because maybe I'll be a little bit more prepared for the overall weirdness of it, and I'll be able to spot deeper things within the text and find more in it to enjoy. But this first reading was a very strange one. So I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on it. If you've read this book, definitely let me know what you thought, because I'd love to know whether you got a little bit more from it from me, or if you had a very similar confusing reading experience. And yeah, aside from that, I hope you've enjoyed hearing my little nuggets of yoga wisdom and that you find that interesting. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.